So, the other day, I was hanging out in a voice chat in a Discord server with some friends. And one of those friends just sort of randomly brought up, I guess they'd just been scrolling through Twitter and they saw the news, that Disney was going to be releasing a live-action Snow White. And I know for a fact that this last part of it was added for me because I would be able to interpret what this means. They then add, and Snow White is going to be played by a brown woman. And I said, does Disney just hate us at this point? Why is Disney giving us its hardest battles? They knew what they were doing. Like, they knew what they were doing. You know exactly what's going to happen. Not only did you make a live-action Disney remake, so there is massive plausible deniability for hating it just being for that alone, because it's very popular to hate any Disney live-action remake, because they suck. But you also gave the right exactly what they want to attack, and gave them what they need to dog whistle their attacks with to make it seem like they're not bigots. Disney actually constructed the most perfect scenario to create ammo for the, far-right grifter types. I couldn't imagine a better combination, and I remember hearing this news and being like, I don't think this was, intentional bait on the part of Disney, by the way. I don't think that's what happened here. I think this is just sort of Disney making more live-action remake movies, because they're making a lot of money, admittedly, as much as they suck, and they're casting a diverse cast of characters, because one, let's be fair, if you're not constraining your casting of certain characters by race, then you're going to have, a lot more, broader of a cast of talent, a broader array of talent that you can choose from for the roles. And two, because having a diverse cast is going to bring in more people, the virtue signaling does make Disney money. It's why they do it. Here's the thing, though. I was able to just sort of Jimmy Neutron brain blast my own future timeline of what's going to happen with the right-wing response to this, and I knew that Critical Drinker would be one of the first people to jump on top of this. Critical Drinker has quickly rose to become probably my favorite person in the right-wing media grift sphere. The quartering used to be my favorite, but the quartering's kind of fallen off a little bit. The Critical Drinker is big. This guy got 2 million views on his most recent video on this Snow White controversy that's happening in 3 days. 2 million views. He's got a video from a week ago with 770,000 views. He's got one with 1.3 million views 11 days ago. This guy gets a ton of views and makes a lot of money off his media reviews. And they're, it's very obvious he has a right-wing slant, but the interesting thing is every time I make a video on this guy, his fans always reply in the comments, Critical Drinker is right-wing? How? And it's like, Did you just hear me say Critical Drinker is right-wing, pause the video, comment that, and then stop watching? Are you not even going to watch the video to see, the arguments? Okay, I don't know. Videos like this, when I cover larger YouTubers, don't tend to have the fans of those YouTubers actually watch the video. They just kind of brigade the comments section with hate comments and snide remarks. So what we're going to do today is implement a code word. If you comment down below, you're going to have to include the code word. I'm going to mention the code word at a random point in this segment. So if you leave a nasty comment and you don't have the code word, I'll know you didn't watch the whole video. And so will the audience. Everybody in the comments will also know you didn't watch the whole video, and you'll look like a real dumb asshole, won't you? Anyway. I love that Zan does code word. It's so fun, though, because every time I do code-worded vids on larger YouTubers, I get hate brigaded in the comments, and none of the comments include the code word, because they'll watch the first, 30 seconds, and then hate comment and leave. With a lot of these people, you actually have to be able to destroy their worldview in less than 30 seconds, or they'll shut their brain off. It's crazy. Anyway, The critical drinker is an interesting one. I'm less interested in proving the critical drinker is right-wing, because who the fuck cares? People are allowed to be conservative. And I'm more interested in proving that the critical drinker is a dishonest hack. One of my favorite things that he'll do is basically just bandwagon. All of his opinions are part of a bandwagon, and he can kind of predict where the bandwagon's going to go before it happens, so it helps to make him look a little bit like he's actually original with his opinions, but he's just decent at predicting what his audience wants to hear before, like when news hits, right? He's good at knowing what his audience wants to hear. A good example of this would actually be when House of the Dragon was announced. Game of Thrones really fell off in its last 2 seasons. Anybody who watched Game of Thrones, you know, it really fell off in its last 2 seasons. And one of the biggest bandwagon opinions to have on the entire internet is that Game of Thrones is dead. That was the bandwagon opinion to have before House of the Dragon happened. So as you can imagine, because Critical Drinker is nothing but a bandwagon rider, when House of the Dragon was announced, he immediately assumed nobody cared about it. Of course, he could have looked at the views in the trailers. He could have just, like, looked into any of this and saw that this wasn't the case. He probably maybe even knew it wasn't the case, but he decided to say nobody cared about House of the Dragon, which is fine. You know, this on its own wouldn't really be a big deal, except 2 months later, House of the Dragon came out to tens of millions of viewers on its premiere night. And he just kind of quietly changed the title of that stream, or of that video, to House of the Dragon Trailer Breakdown. That's an interesting one. He's done this many times. There are a lot of instances of him flipping and flopping on a particular piece of media to try and, you know, just jump on whatever bandwagon is the most profitable and most likely to get him the most backpats from his audience and the general broader sort of chuddy demographic of online media bros that he can get, right? He's very Weasley. This guy doesn't actually have any real opinions. He will change his opinions in a flash. He will cover up things he said in the past that make him look stupid now. He's not willing to stand by anything he's said. And he's very slimy in regards to the expressions and standing by of what he actually believes politically. He's like Tim Pool, a bit like Tim Pool, but Tim Pool does actual politics. This guy reviews media, but his level of, like, conservative media review is like, we got another movie made by modern woke Hollywood where they put... I can't really do his, like slurred, drunk Irish accent. Hold on, let me see if I can get it, like... Right, so we got another woke movie where they push this woke... Scottish, okay, whatever it may be. The only thing I like about the Critical Drinker is he's not British. Right then, so this new movie, it is super woke. The woman outdoes the man at every turn. The movie's just about how bad and inferior men are to the amazing woman. And not only that, but he's a white man, a straight white man, and she's a woman of color. And oh, you won't be surprised. They reveal halfway through the movie she's also gay. So this gay black woman is outdoing the straight white male established protagonist, and you're telling me this isn't woke propaganda? I can't do the accent, but that is literally the level of like media review he does. And then when you say, bro, you're literally just like a right-wing propagandist. You're just complaining about things being woke and having minorities in them. And then he'll fall back on the, no, I'm just critiquing it for being badly written and for being uninspired. I just supplement my critiques with the fact that they just go for woke virtue signal points when, like, it's very clear he's just jumping on the bandwagon of shitting on whatever the anti-woke crowd hates. It's sort of it's a Emperor's New Clothes thing, you know? You're allowed to think it, and know it, but you're not allowed to say it. Everybody knows the critical drinker is just churning out right-wing propaganda for money. I mean, the guy literally, here he's made 2 back-to-back Indiana Jones movies. Indiana Jones, destined to flop, and Indiana Jones and the Destruction of Legacy. Like, just the very, like, lazy content as well. You know, no thumbnails to speak of, just screenshots of the movies, you know? Maybe even, like, the poster will be the screenshot. And it's just him ranting and rambling for 5 to 10 minutes over, like, a repeat slideshow of clips from the movie. And my favorite thing that he does to movies that he reviews is he lowers the saturation. I don't know if you've noticed this. If you watch, like, a critical drinker movie or TV show review, he lowers the saturation noticeably if you put the 2 things side to side to make whatever it is he's covering look more, like, sort of gray and sort of colorless and lifeless and more bland and less appealing, you know? Almost a way of visually tricking the audience, gaslighting the audience into making them believe the movie is even presented poorly, right? He'd probably say it was done to get around copyright or something, but those videos are, to be fair, fair use. His videos are fair use, without a shadow of a doubt, so whatever it may be. Anyway, he recently put out a video, by that I mean 3 days ago, it has 2 million views, called Snow White Looks Hilariously Bad. So, I mean, this is just basically prophesized. I knew this was coming. The second I heard about it, the second I heard this movie was coming out, I knew this was coming. So, I am ready to hear the critical drinker totally criticize this movie for completely non-right-wing inspired reasons. Let's hear it.
You know, I'm beginning to believe that Disney are experiencing some kind of corporate survivor's guilt for all the money they've made over the years, and have resolved to do everything in their power to correct that mistake. Whether it's tanking every single brand under their umbrella, or getting into ridiculous political battles they can never hope to win, or...
Right off the bat, we're siding with Ron DeSantis, who is currently trying to make it illegal to be trans or LGBT in Florida. We're off to a great start. We're off to a fantastic start. Not right-wing critical drinker slamming Disney for going after Ron DeSantis. The one scenario in existence where any human being should be pro-Disney is when they're actively waging a legal battle against the state government, because the state government is implementing policies that are making the state more hostile to a marginalized group of people, which is bad for their business. Okay, we're off to a very good start. Okay.
Or releasing flop after flop that have burned through hundreds of millions of dollars. It feels like the company is conducting its very own Viking funeral on itself, while it's still...
They've been saying this for like 13 years now at this point. Like 10 years now. They've been saying this since Gamergate, that Disney and all these companies are flopping and going broke. I mean, it was literally No Bullshit who coined Go Woke, Go Broke. No Bullshit hasn't uploaded since 2019. The Go Woke, Go Broke thing has been being uttered over and over and over and over again for a decade now. Disney's not going to go under from any of this, obviously. But the crazy thing to me is that, like, imagine in 30 years... some crazy shit happens and Disney actually does go under. It would obviously be for some, like, completely unrelated thing. These people would still be saying, yep, that's what going woke gets ya. Took 40 years. But that's what it was. The wokeness finally got them. If you just keep saying it over and over again and it happens, eventually you'll be right. You know? It's like a doomsday prophet, you know? They've been saying since, like, the 1940s and before, but, you know, in more modern recorded history, like, since the 1930s and 40s, there have been known doomsday prophets, and they're like, on this date the world shall end, the angels will descend from the heavens, the demons will descend from the earth, and God shall rain fireballs upon the earth, and all the worthy souls will be brought up to heaven. And then the date has just being moved forward every single, like, supposed apocalypse state for the last 150 years and before that. just charlatans can, if you just keep saying the same thing over and over again, eventually you'll be right, and you can just kind of tack your entire reputation to that one time you were right, and then that'll be it, right? A lot of charlatans take advantage of this this general method.
Alive. And since they've more or less run out of ideas for new things to create, they've decided to pilfer their back catalogue of classic animated movies.
Oh, one of my favorite things, I forgot to mention this. Critical Drinker is against the Hollywood strikes right now. These stories that are coming out about the, from like different writers and whatnot for different shows that he is covered and hates because they're woke or whatever, when they talk about how underpaid they were and how overworked they were because he doesn't like the shows they're writing, Critical Drinker's response was to say they were overpaid. He is opposed to the to the striking. He sees this as like woke Hollywood striking. Yeah.
Movies with a...
These people see the writers and the people that like put their heart and soul into these movies because, listen, I'm going to be honest with you. Even the most soullessly, corporately, like, shameless movie, there are shit tons of people that are working on that movie who are putting their heart and soul into it. That is the thing that people like this don't recognize. These movies in the critical drinker's mind all just come from Disney. And that's just sort of like an amorphous blob, right? He doesn't like imagine real people there. But like imagine all of the people and different things that it takes to go into making a movie, right? Just one example. Let's imagine Christopher Robin, right? Every sound effect in the movie was created by a person in a room with just piles of different props and a nice microphone syncing up sounds and editing up sounds to do Foley work. The camera equipment. These are people whose entire lives are behind a camera, framing shots, like adjusting color and aspect ratio, knowing what time of day needs to be perfect to be in the golden hour so they get the right type of light for a perfect shot. Like the people who design the sets for certain movies, and I know for Beauty and the Beast they did have practical sets as well. A lot of these sets are literally handcrafted, like the trees and the rock and like a broken like ruin will be made out of clay, handcrafted. These are like artists of so many different calibers that all put their life, heart, and soul for years or plus on end, pouring their shit into making one movie. All different people working different jobs, making one movie. Those are the workers striking right now. But to the critical drinker, they are all part of the amorphous blob that is woke Disney and woke Hollywood. They are the bad guys, these woke writers that he's always referring to. The workers who are like putting their actual like blood, sweat, and tears into these movies, that's who the critical drinker demonizes. Occasionally he'll like virtue signal by talking about corporate, but he's always shitting on the actual workers. He makes it look like the real problem here are the woke writers. These like this quote unquote diverse cast of woke writers that he'll refer to in some videos, right? You've heard this a million times from No Bullshit, from Geeks and Gamers, from The Quartering, from this guy, from Mahler. They say the same shit, and they just farm in the clicks, and they just rake in the money.
Series of soulless, cynical, cash grab live action remakes. The problem is that the first few films actually did pretty well at the box office, so they've decided to put the brakes on their latest project with an unnecessary race swap of the main character, rewriting and undermining the core themes of the story.
An unnecessary reswap. So you can kind of get an idea, like the way he kind of just sort of nudges at the races, like it was an unnecessary race swap. So it's not that he's mad about the character being black, it's that he finds it was done unnecessarily. Very, very nice.
To make it acceptable for modern audience.
Also, didn't The Little Mermaid like really perform well? Because They said that was gonna go woke, go broke. Yeah, I like this here. As he said, so one of the things that the critical drinker, I think, said in like a response to me is that he's never said SJW in a single video. And I was like, really? Has he never said SJW in a single video? That makes it hard for me to believe. But now I know why, because he says things like modern audience and then plays a clip from 2014 of the, or 2016 of the screaming SJW lady.
Themes of the story to make it acceptable for modern audiences.
Yeah.
And hammering it all home with what I can only describe as the single worst collection of sounds ever recorded by human technology in all of history.
Remember my song in the swamp when I was like, whap, chicka, whap, whap, chicka, whap.
And they look set to repeat this not-so-winning formula with their next live-action remake, Snow White and the Seven Dwarves. Oh wait, sorry, Snow White and the Seven Magical Diverse Gender Non-Conforming Vertically Challenged Creatures.
Dude, people, like 2 million people have watched this in 3 days. 2 million people have watched this in 3 days. The funny thing is, they're just kind of like manifesting the wokeness. Like, if the movie was called Snow White and the Seven Magical Diverse Gender Non-Conforming Vertically Challenged Creatures, I would agree. All right, I think Hollywood might be getting a little too woke, guys. I'm not gonna lie. This might be going a little too far. But, like, much like every other thing they bitch about, it's all in their heads to the extent where they have to make it seem more woke with a meme. Because there's nothing woke about it other than there being brown people. These people think woke is bad. They very often talk about woke in such a way that denotes they think that's bad. But every time they refer to something being woke, it's just minorities existing. So when I connect those two puzzle pieces, and I say I think the critical drinker might think minorities in media are bad, or is bad, his fans and him get really upset. I wonder why. It's almost like racists don't want people to know that they're racist. They like to lie about their true beliefs.
Thank you.
The thing is, Snow White is a bit of a special one for the Disney Corporation because it was their very first feature-length animated movie made by Walt himself way back in 1937. Taking its inspiration from a 19th century German fairy tale by the brothers Grimm, it tells the story of a beautiful young woman who gets betrayed by her evil stepmother and eventually takes refuge in a forest with seven dwarfs who give her shelter and protection.
Everyone knows this. I know you want the ad revenue.
An animated film of all time, and one of the most important movies in the history of cinema. Now, call me crazy if you like.
You know what's always crazy? And I am going to call him crazy. The crazy thing is, like, I watched Snow White on VHS as a kid. I watched a lot of Disney movies, like Bambi and whatnot, like Aladdin and stuff. Like, I watched a lot of animated Disney movies as a kid, mostly on VHS, you know? And I think back to that, and I'm like, that's a pretty pleasant memory. Even as an adult, sometimes I would go back and I'd like rewatch it just to be like, I wonder like what memories I still have of the movie, like in my mind, how they connect, because I just have kind of shattered thoughts. I want to see what I get about the movie that I didn't get as a kid. And you'd watch it and you'd be like, okay. All right, there's some things I definitely didn't pick up on as a kid. And then you just kind of now know what the movie is, and that's it. It's so bizarre to me, though, how dudes like this talk about these Disney movies from their childhood, like it being remade is like this sacrilegious act that is destroying their lives. Like, Snow White is important to this guy, the way he's wording it. Like, this was important to his development, to who he is as a person. It's like, dog, okay, Snow White was a movie I might have watched twice as a kid on VHS while eating Cheerios on the couch. So I don't know if it's really that deep. I also don't think the old copies of the original movie get deleted out of existence with this remake. I mean, to be fair with Disney, they might stop reproducing it, but there's always yar, you know. But regardless, I feel it's all in their heads. It's literally all in their heads.
but something tells me this remake isn't going to be so well regarded. The problems began early on with the casting of Rachel Zegler as Snow White. Now, why was this a problem, you might ask? Well, the original German folktale describes the character as follows. Schneewittchen hat Lippen rot von einer Rose, Haar schwarz.
Alright, so let's hear how he's going to explain, in a not racist way, why she's not white, why her not being white is a problem, but he's definitely not racist, guys.
Wie Ebenholz und Haut weiß wie Schnee. Or in less world...
I do also like him doing his best, like, angry reading German thing for, you know, no reason at all, I'm sure.
Dominating terms, Snow White had lips red as a rose, hair black as ebony, and skin white as snow. Skin white as snow. Skin white as snow.
Is this how you, like... Is this how you do, racism without looking racist, I guess? Like, this has 2 million views in 3 days, dude. 2 million views in 3 days, and this guy will literally have a Twitter meltdown if you call him a reactionary or right-wing. This guy, his fans and him will literally have a meltdown if you call them right-wing. Like, the fact that this guy's too much of a coward to even own his clear political bias is just all the evidence that I need to know he's just a grifting, lying, pathetic sack of shit. Oh, there's a really good channel as well. I watched a couple of his videos recently while I was leveling in FF14. The channel's called Pillar of Garbage. Critical Drinker and Mauler and like like that crew of grifters did a stream responding to it. Because they get really copy when Pillar of Garbage makes a video on them. But Pillar of Garbage's videos on Critical Drinker are scathing. He meticulously takes apart, proving like where the dishonesty and the misrepresentations are. For example, one of my favorites is a point where Critical Drinker tries to claim a movie is poorly written. Because at one point, a character is like watching 2 other characters fuck from the bushes. I think this is like his review of Glass Onion. Like there's a character watching 2 other characters fuck from the bushes, and then he turns around, and then like the person watching him from behind a bush like hides behind the bush. And then he turns around, he doesn't see anybody, right? And Critical Drinker's like, so what would have possibly indicated to him that he needed to turn around there? Why would he have turned around? What was this done for other than a goofy little thing, right? A goofy little gag to be funny or something. And then Pillar of Garbage is like, this scene is really weird and awkward, but I'm going to play the actual scene from the movie really quick with audio, which he, conveniently leaves off, so you can see exactly what level of dishonesty Critical Drinker operates on. He then plays the clip with sound from Glass Onion. The reason the character turns around is because a twig snaps when the character behind the bush looks out, and Critical Drinker just mutes the audio and complains about there being no reason for the character to turn around when, if you listen, there was a very audible twig snap that made him turn. That is unironically the level of dishonesty this guy operates on. He makes videos about movies for people who haven't seen those movies. His videos are for people who've heard of Glass Onion, know it's popular, don't want to watch it, and just want to hate it because they know it's popular and want to jump on that bandwagon. He's the guy you go to get your opinion about movies you haven't seen and want to have like a contrarian negative opinion about the popular thing, with a little side of conservative propaganda. Yeah, in the Norse mythology, the dwarves in Snow White, the original cartoon, do not look like dwarves in Norse mythology. Norse mythology dwarves are nothing like even Tolkien dwarves in appearance, okay? If we want to get down to the color of skin even, the original wasn't true to form, right? Norse dwarves were fucking weird.
Sure, okay. I mean, you'd think that Disney might have learned from The Little Mermaid that imposing 21st century American cultural norms by race swapping major characters from popular European fairy tales doesn't
does he mean black? Is that his dog whistle for when he means black people?
learned from The Little Mermaid that imposing 21st century American cultural norms by race-swapping major characters from popular European fairy tales doesn't tend to go down too well, but whatever.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure what he actually means is trying to appeal to black people. Yeah, well, I know the race swap thing is referring to her being black now. I think what he's trying to say, though, when he refers to modern audiences, he uses that term a lot. I have a feeling it's a dog whistle for something. I think he means something by that. Yeah, he likes to say modern culture and modern audiences. And it's like, what does that mean? Do you mean woke? And what do you mean by woke? Because this is what you call woke. So, like, there's literally no way out if you actually get one of these people in a conversation about what they mean by that. You just have to question them. It's like, It's like asking someone with a Confederate flag who says that the Confederacy was just fighting for states' rights. You ask them states' rights to what? And they're like, well...
As long as they nailed the characterization and stayed true to the themes and ideas of the original story, I'm sure it would all be fine.
This Snow White is going to have a modern edge to her, a modern edge to her, a modern edge to her.
Cartoon was so focused on her finding true love, and it's really not even in her mind at all in this film. So focused on becoming the leader and how to find her own agency.
Of course she does. Because why have a story about the redeeming power of love when we can focus instead on the only thing that truly matters in life? You. Don't you?
So this is part of, like, the conservative argument that women are becoming selfish by not getting married to men. Like, they basically, they push this idea that media is encouraging women to not get married young and to pursue careers and to be girl bosses, which is actually going to make women miserable in the long run. That's their claim. And so he's mad about the movie taking a different, like, approach. Okay, so here's the question. If the live-action remakes are shit because they're literally just from the ground up live-action remakes that are just cash grabs, wouldn't you want them to do something a little different so that there's a reason for it to exist? At the very least, if the live-action remake takes a different take on the story, it gives itself a reason to exist other than, let's try to monetize this movie again, all like today. Because now there's actually a new story to an extent being told, or at least additions to the story, right? It's like the difference between a remake to a game and a remaster. If I found out a game's getting remastered, it's going to be like, okay. I mean, if it couldn't run on the previous hardware, or on current hardware, then I guess that's good. Now I can play it. But if it was like a remake from a game, or a remaster from a game 5 years ago, I'd rather it be a remake that has extra content in it, like what Dead Space did. In the original story of Snow White, was kissed by an older man while Snow White is around 15 or 16. Yeah, listen, if you actually use these people's logic, it all falls apart. These are the types of people who complain about how it's unrealistic to play as a woman in insert video game because it's a war video game, but it's also a war video game where you jump out of fighter jets into other fighter jets while, like, 360 RPG no-scoping a tank from 5 miles in the air, you know? Like, they don't actually care about the realism aspect. They just want to make it seem like they're not complaining about there being women. They did the same. They've been doing this for years. You remember when that one Fallout game, Battlefield, not Fallout, Battlefield 5 got announced, and they had the amputee woman, right? They all lost their fucking minds about women being in war and saying it was unrealistic. In Battlefield, their excuse for how they weren't misogynistic and their complaint was it was just unrealistic was that the Battlefield game is unrealistic for having... It's a very, very flimsy cover for what they actually believe.
You see, it's about what you want, what's best for you, what makes you happy, and everyone else can go fuck themselves. Now, where have I heard this sentiment before?
It's also updated with the current times, you know? It's not just all...
It's literally all in his head. Notice how he's just kind of saying a straw man of what the left believes. Nothing about that or any of these interviews has indicated anything that he said there. He's just hearing them have like a nice little interview and then going on about how it's all about you. Be selfish. That's what they want you to be, selfish. I want you to be kind. I'm a good person. The left are bad people.
All about a boy, you know, it's all about what she wants for herself.
Chicka quack quack, chicka quack.
Jesus, it's like a bunch of robots that have all been given the latest software download at the same time. You know?
Okay, something that Pillar of Garbage's videos that respond to this guy do very well is he has something called the irony key. He has a key on his keyboard that he says, okay, anytime Critical Drinker says something extremely ironic, I'm going to hit the irony key. And so Critical Drinker will say something as an insult that is like the most apt description for what he does ever, and it's extremely ironic he'd say it, and you just play the irony key. So, yeah, Critical Drinker is known for literally just describing what he does in a very vitriolic way, and then using it as an insult towards anything he doesn't like, and it's really funny. This guy is an aging incel. I don't think he's an incel, but he's definitely a real alcoholic. No content creator who makes it like a this guy's definitely an actual alcoholic.
You know, I love how Disney are still trying to sell this idea of strong, self-actualized female protagonists pursuing their life goals without the help of a man, as if it's some crazy new idea that's never been tried before, instead of, you know, the plot of literally every single movie and TV show they've made in the past 10 years. This isn't new or inventive anymore, and you're not...
What is new and inventive about your content, Critical Drinker? This, like, the irony is just blaring. He has to know he's talking about his own content at this point, right? He's got to be saying this just to trigger the lefties watching that are just like... He knows he's talking about himself, right?
Impressing anyone with this shit. In fact, all you're really doing is taking away timeless elements of the original story and replacing them with a vacuous, shallow, and ultimately meaningless facade of female empowerment. You don't need a man, you don't need love, you don't need attachments to other people, in fact. You just need to be strong, be empowered, be a leader, and buy more of our... Okay.
So the argument from people who are in favor of movies that have tone or themes like this is that for a very long time, particularly in nerd media, we're talking comic book movies, superhero stuff, nerd culture media in general, women have always been, as far as characterization goes, relegated to a sort of bizarre trophy position. The princess you have to rescue, or the unfathomably beautiful, like, elf queen that is, like, unobtainably wise and powerful, but is also just sort of... Even I'm talking about Galadriel here. Like, let's be fair, Galadriel's an extremely flat character in Tolkien's writing. So, like, you look at classic nerd media. Women have historically been relegated to very niche positions of being essentially a damsel in distress a lot of the time, or if not a damsel in distress, a trophy to be achieved, a prize to be won, right? Hell, some like nerd media goes all the way and just straight up displays that in a more literal way, right? Like Game of Thrones, for example. Game of Thrones isn't anti-woke because it like shows women being like a trophy to be earned and like property of men. That's how that world is. It makes sense, right? But if you're trying to push this idea that modern media should conform around the principles that youth, like these classical like women are to be like basically nothing but male main characters or side characters, love interests, then you're just kind of misogynistic. You're just kind of misogynistic. I don't know what else to say about that.
Products. I mean, okay, maybe the main character's a bit of a bust, but what about the dwarves? I mean, really, they were as much of a collective protagonist in the original movie as Snow White herself. They went through a real character arc together. They learned to work together, to take advantage of their unique skills, to risk their lives for someone else, and ultimately they learned the value of friendship, loyalty, and sacrifice.
Why are you
Oh
explaining?
wait, they're not actually
Snow White
dwarves
to me?
anymore. Not since the towering intellect of Peter Dinklage weighed in on the film and decided that the portrayal of dwarves in the original movie was backwards and insulting.
You serious?
Peter...
Wait, is he actually gonna shit on Peter Dinklage of all people? Does he think he can win the cultural battle against Peter Dinklage? I have no idea what Peter Dinklage said, but I have no doubt it wasn't some, like, triggered SJW rant. He was probably very reasonable and measured and probably made a really good argument or point, and people were like, oh, okay, yeah, you're making sense.
Mate, you understand that those characters were actually the fantasy species of dwarf and not actual humans afflicted with dwarfism, right?
Critical Drinker, are you going to try and pretend right now that old Disney cartoons are not rife with, poorly aged references to real-life bigotry? Are we going to try to pretend Dumbo doesn't exist, my friend? Who are you trying to fool? My bro. I may have been like 8 last time I watched Snow White, but I'm pretty sure there were references to the dwarves in Snow White supposed to, like, that are like references and jokes about real life dwarves. I'm pretty sure I've heard jokes towards real life dwarves that are like very common insults that come from Snow White. How many times have you heard Snow White, like, based memes about real life dwarves? Like, think about it for half a second, and you're like, ah, yeah, okay. I think Peter Dinklage might have said something reasonable and not gone on, like, some crazy SJW rant, like what Critical Drinker is trying to make me think. I think he might have had a good point about whatever it was he talked about here, but I assure you we will not hear any direct quotes from Critical Drinker. And if we do, they'll be prepped with a whole lot of well poisoning, and here's what he actually means.
Either way, the result was the same. Someone was angry and things had to change. The dwarves were shit-canned and changed into magical forest creatures, whatever the fuck that's supposed to mean, and 7 roles that could have been played by dwarf actors were basically erased.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him.
Honestly, you'd think that Peter would have been the bigger man and given his fellow
I mean, I will admit, that's actually pretty cringe. I do think they should be, like, he might just literally be lying here and might have just read the promo for the movie and read magical forest creatures, and they're going to be dwarves in the movie, but that's the promo of the movie, so he's assuming that they've been renamed in the entirety of the movie to magical forest creatures, and that would be very funny and in character for him. But why didn't they just do the Peter Jackson perspective thing? I know it's expensive and pretty difficult, but this is Disney we're talking about. Like, this is my criticism I would give as, like, an actually interested in the well-being and development of media person that I am. Why not just make them dwarves and have, like, average height people with perspective trickery made into dwarves like they did with the Peter Jackson Lord of the Rings movie? Like, it's actually not that hard. It's really interesting how it works, too. You can do it even, like, on a flat surface as well. Like, you can, what you can do is have, like, a side view, like a wide shot side view of a character who's really tall and a character who's really short, and they can be the same height in real life. And as long as you have them far enough from each other at the right angle, and you have an environment built that, like, angles correctly, you will absolutely trick the human brain into seeing the taller, like, the one person is way taller than the other, and the environment will look completely normal. And it can be a completely wide shot. It's completely possible. Practical effects and perspective can really do a lot when it comes to the size and height of like, characters. You can literally just turn someone into a hobbit with nothing but perspective. It's really cool. And yeah, I wish they would have done that, but I mean, Critical Drinker just wants to make his quick buck off of this, which he has. He's made, like, the amount of, to give you an idea, this video has more views than my channel gets in a month. So he's going to make, like, probably 4 times the amount that I make in a month off YouTube with this one video. I feel like that's a very good sort of way of describing and showing you guys the level of cultural power and money-making power the right has online compared to the left. This one video is like 4 months of work for me on YouTube.
There's a chance, but I guess not. Maybe he's got an elevated sense of his own importance or something. So let's consider what we've got so far with this thing. A classic European fairy tale about a young woman with skin as white as snow, played by an actress of Colombian descent, so that everyone can see themselves in 19th century German folklore. A story about the search for true love that's no longer about true love in order to avoid offending the lonely middle-aged feminists that'll never actually watch the movie in the first place.
Well, I mean, he drops feminism bad right there in the video. I mean, I guess he can't try and claim that he doesn't think feminism is bad when he just did a blue hair feminism bad meme in 2023.
And supported by 7 dwarves that are no longer...
Oh god, is he a divorce court Andy? I think Critical Drinker might be a divorce court Andy. You're not wrong. That's actually a very good analysis right there. We might be dealing with a divorce court Andy here.
Dwarves in order to avoid offending Peter Dinklage.
Fuck.
But hey, at least it'll probably look good, right? I mean, these live-action movies cost hundreds of millions of dollars, so you can bet it's gonna be up there on screen for all to see.
You know what this is? This is the exact same response they had when the original images of Rings of Power came out. And we saw that there were gonna be, like, we saw the Harfoots, and we saw one of them as black in, like, some promo material. I think I remember this exact, like, edit. Like, I'm literally having, like, fucking flashbacks right now. By the way, The Witcher could be considered woke by him if you've seen the show. I've seen The Witcher. Basically, the way that the right is handling The Witcher right now is Henry Cavill's, like, a very hands-off guy when it comes to, like, the discussion about him online. He doesn't really seem to react to it much. And there's been a lot of narratives going around about how, like, Henry Cavill is trying to single-handedly preserve the integrity of the Witcher show, but they won't listen to him, and they hate him, and that's why he's leaving. And the alt-right has very quickly sort of latched onto him as, like, an unwilling sort of, like, they stan him, basically, and it's sort of like an unwilling thing on his part. So you'll see a lot of right-wing YouTubers have been getting really into like Henry Cavill memes. They're trying to claim Henry Cavill really hard because he's supposed to be like the ideal Chad nerd who's like true to the source material and against the race swapping, supposedly. Apparently some sussy shit came out about Henry Cavill, but it's nothing that's like, it's nothing memorable, like bad enough that it's memorable, you know? It's just stuff that's like, ugh, okay, well, I mean, it's nothing too bad, but I hope I hope it's just a fluke, you know, because I like Henry Cavill. I don't want him to, like, end up being cringe or anything like that, but the right is hardcore trying to claim him as, like, their like, Giga Chad daddy.
No.
3 million views. 3 million views in 3 days. Or sorry, 3 million views in 2 days.
I have to admit, I didn't react to these pictures at first because, like a lot of people, I naturally assumed that they had to be fake. I mean, they've got to be, right? There's no way a big budget movie could possibly look this shit.
My favorite thing about these YouTubers is their complaints about costume design. So, something that happens very commonly, okay, in media production, because, you know, these guys don't know anything about actual production of movies or TV shows or anything like that, but something that happens a lot when movies or TV shows are being made nowadays is some person on set snaps a photo with their camera on their phone and posts it on the internet, like this image right here, or the image that's the selfie, or the image, not a selfie, an image of the Snow White actress here. Now, the costumes look fine, but from a phone camera, in broad daylight, they look kind of oversaturated. They don't look cinematic and movie-like, right? The reason for that is on camera, after being filmed in the proper lighting and everything, lots of filters are gone over with every movie to help all of the colors fit the tone. They did this really badly with Rings of Power when images of set photos came out of that. They got like a bunch of photos of like random guards or like soldiers that are like really far background characters in the actual shots and like said, look how cheap and crappy the costume design is. And then you see the show and like they show a character and say the costume design looks bad. And you can tell they're just trying to cope and stand by their previous statement. Like ROP Galadriel's armor. My favorite was when they tried to claim Galadriel's armor looks like shit. Because what came out first were photos on a phone that made it look plasticky without the like filters and shit that you get in the actual show where it's like, oh yeah, that looks like steel. That looks like steel plate armor. That looks dope as fuck. But in real life, you can tell it's plastic. And it's a prop suit in real life when you take like a photo with your phone, and they shit on these costumes a lot when these set photos came out because it was very easy to do so before the actual show dropped. There is a huge market in shitting on media no one has seen so that they can have an opinion on it, right? There's a big market in giving people who don't want to watch popular media an opinion to have.
Fake. I mean, they've got to be right. There's no way a big budget movie could possibly look this shit. And for a few hours at least, it seemed like I was right. Then the confirmation came back from a Disney spokesman that they were in fact real photos from the movie set.
My God, they're real.
I just can't anymore, man. This right here is the decline of Western culture summed up in a single image.
The decline... Okay, so this guy's full-on alt-right. He actually thinks, like, the Jews are destroying the West. That is crazy, dude. That is actually crazy. He went full-on the decline of Western culture. Is he gonna drop cultural Marxism now? The Nazi code word for Jew? I hope he says like Marxism or something. Yeah, cultural Marxism. I hope we get the JQ dog whistle. Come on, JQ for me.
And this movie is the literal personification of everything wrong with modern entertainment. It's what happens when you're so desperate to showcase your progressive...
He says this with every movie and TV show he covers. How many how many movies are going to be that? Like, you say that for everything.
Wrong with modern entertainment. It's
how many movies and shows are everything wrong with modern entertainment? You say this about every new thing. First, it was Indiana Jones last time. And it was also Rings of Power. It was also Little Mermaid. Like, what is the...
It's what happens when you're so desperate to showcase your progressive credentials and conform to the endlessly growing list of contradictory demands and nonsensical restrictions that you end up tying both of your creative hands behind your back.
Hey, Critical Drinker, you want to have a conversation on stream with me about these so-called contradictions within left-wing ideology? Hit me up on Discord. My username is literally just Xanderhall. We got the Discord update with just usernames now, so you can literally just add me as... My name's just Xanderhall. Just send me a request. I'll check for you adding me. We can... I can have you on stream, and we can talk about these so-called, countless contradictions in progressive ideology. I would love to talk about how your content is absolutely filled with lies and misrepresentations. That would be very interesting. I think it would be a great time.
And what you ultimately produce is just as soulless, joyless, and pointless as the people you're desperately trying to win approval from. Because here's the thing, whenever you ask them what they want next, no matter how far you've already gone or how much you've sacrificed to try to appease them, the answer will always be the same. More. No matter how many concessions you make, how many problematic elements you murder.
I like how, you look at lefty anything, and it's like, fuck Disney. Disney's shit. The only thing we like about Disney is that they're going against Ron DeSantis right now. And they're building, this fantasy scenario where the left is, clapping like seals for Disney.
mercilessly hack away from your story, how many progressive characters and themes and mindless talking points you awkwardly shove into your narrative, it will quite simply never
Like
be
what?
enough. There's always
some
going to be
examples.
another point of outrage, another demand for change, another rule that can't be broken, another piece of your creative freedom you're asked to give up, another piece of cultural heritage to be rewritten for a modern audience that doesn't exist. And you know,
A modern audience that doesn't exist. Wait, so now they don't exist now. Wait. Okay, so is he admitting the SJW stereotype that he's been talking about isn't real? Wait, then who are they? Then why are these movies doing so well? Disney's not going bankrupt. The Little Mermaid did amazingly in the box office. As much as you guys want to pretend it didn't, I mean, numbers don't lie. So, like, what? Did you just admit you've just been shadowboxing? Yeah, a good point, Bolshevik. Like, yeah. So they're not real?
you know what? They're fucking welcome to it. If this is the kind of sterile, loveless, charmless, creatively bankrupt propaganda that you choose
Irony key.
to serve up, then best of luck to you. Because if the reactions online are anything to go by, you're absolutely gonna need it.
Dude, I feel like we need a very quick... I'm going to give a shout out. I want to give a very quick shout out to Pillar of Garbage, okay? This channel has done some phenomenal takedowns on Critical Drinker. Code word? We'll get to the code word in a minute. This guy, this guy has done some fantastic takedowns on Critical Drinker. My favorite is this one because it's just him calling out direct lies that he told about Glass Onion. We're not going to react to this whole video, but I want to see if I can play a bit of it for you guys, just so you can see some direct, like, cited examples on screen of how much of a liar Critical Drinker is.
There are a lot of lies in the Critical Drinker's latest video. A lot of smaller ones, straddling the lines between deception and willful misinterpretation, a few bigger ones, and one particularly shameless, bald-faced fib. As a matter of principle, I try my best to avoid watching this guy's videos, but someone sent me this latest one, and it kind of blew my mind, to the point that I feel a moral obligation to use my comparatively modest platform to push back against this slurry of boneheaded, brazen nonsense, because it really does just lower this whole format of online media criticism. If you just want to see the main attraction, the mightiest Porky, I'll put timecodes in the description, but there's enough sheer bollocks before the big one rolls around that for posterity's sake, I think we better spend a bit of time just going through this mess of a video. Thanks for unpausing, and oh, Glass Onion spoilers, by the way. The start is really quite funny.
Ah, stupid people. Let's be honest, they're basically everywhere in modern culture, from politics to music to YouTube. Everywhere you look, you're confronted by vapid, brain-dead morons dispensing their unwanted and uninformed opinions like mentally challenged Delphic Oracle.
I like how he's talking about people are dispensing their unwanted opinions like Delphic oracles and showing clips of the Rings of Power premiere with interviews of the non-white actors for Rings of Power. It's like, okay, so they're actors being interviewed for the premiere of the show that they're in. So they would be they would be talking about things, obviously, like to a camera. It's not like a unusual or narcissistic thing. And I don't know what you mean. Like, what is the relation here?
This is the irony note. I'm going to play it every time the drinker says something bitingly unaware. That isn't going to pay off immediately, but it's going to pay off. But yeah, the first half or so of this video is pretty much just a fairly inaccurate plot recap.
Here, I want to find that particular clip where it's just like the blatant misrepresentation. Big spoilers for Glass Onion, by the way.
Buzz to his gaff, sods off, and watches the cameras all weekend, especially if you get home after and see that Andy was dead the whole time. Wonder how that'd help Miles' alibi.
What if Miles didn't have fax machines in all of his residencies where all of his emails and sensitive personal information got routed?
What sort of question is this? Miles' fax system is perfectly in character. It seems quirky, idiosyncratic.
Oh yeah, I forgot to mention, when the Critical Drinker does movie takedowns, like they're very CinemaSins style, but they're actually worse than CinemaSins. Like, at the very least, CinemaSins takedowns of movies were about what was happening in the movie. The Critical Drinker criticizes movies for things that could have happened in the movie. Basically, what I mean is, he will literally say, wait, if this particular thing wasn't the case, then the entire story would unravel and the movie couldn't exist. That is bad writing. He basically critiques every movie as though if the events of the movie were not inevitable, in the way that they're set up, then it's bad writing. Like, even if you change the setup, if the events of the movie aren't inevitable, then it's bad writing, apparently. It's really bad. It's actually worse than CinemaSins. It's actually worse movie critique than CinemaSins. At least CinemaSins is politically neutral. At least I think so. Nah, CinemaSins was right-leaning. He was very much right-leaning. Pretty much everybody who makes like a living grifting off of shitting on movies like this is right-wing. Just so, like, even if their content isn't blaringly so, it's like you generally have to just sort of be a bad person to do that kind of thing. And there are lots of bad people who are progressive, trust me. Like, there are a lot of them, but, you know. Anyway, this is the best section of the video, the biggest lie.
As you may have noticed, there's been a ramping up of sorts throughout this video. The guy's points keep getting more and more flawed, more and more facile. The lies are getting more frequent.
Oh yeah, the critical drinker and like Mahler and that crowd of grifters unironically want you to believe that Ryan Johnson is a hack. Ryan Johnson, they want you to think is a hack. Let me just bring something up for you guys. That is my argument. Ozymandias, that's my argument against that. And I think that's really all you need.
They all pale in comparison to this. For context, the drink has just launched into a big complaint about the film not giving the audience the mysteries breadcrumbs for them to figure out alongside the characters, despite the fact that it does this. Miles malapropised.
It's the universally agreed upon best episode of Breaking Bad. Like, Breaking Bad is pretty overwhelmingly agreed upon to be one of, if not the best show ever put to television, and Ozymandias is overwhelmingly agreed upon to be the best episode of Breaking Bad. And it was directed and partially written by Ryan Johnson.
Being one example, the glass pass being another, and about the characters stumbling upon the clues by accident, even though the clips he plays clearly show them intentionally sleuthing. And then he says this.
And this isn't even mentioning how Ryan blatantly rewrites previous events to show you what he wants you to see instead of what actually happens.
The example drink he gives for Ryan Johnson's blatant rewriting is the scene where Blanc and, as we later see Helen, spot Duke's voyeurism.
Batista's watching his girlfriend supposedly having an affair with Miles only to be observed by Blanc. Now look at the later version of this exact same scene. Notice how Helen's been added in here when she totally should have been visible before.
Except no, that isn't true. There's a reason the drinker plays these clips on mute. Let me put the sound back on for you. That was the first time we see this. There's a close shot of Duke, then we hear the twig snap, and then we pull back to a shot revealing Blanc. Here's the scene as we're shown it later on.
He cut that out.
We start with this slightly wider.
He literally cut that entire, like, portion out of the clip of the movie he shows and mutes it. So you can't see, like literally just blatantly lies. Just blatantly. And my favorite part, too, is this is the actual coloring of the scene. But then if we go back to the critical drinkers clip, this is how the critical drinker desaturates the things that he covers. Like, don't you think there's something about this that's supposed to psychologically suggest the movie is more bland and unappealing to the viewer who's no doubt never seen the movie that they're going to a YouTuber to get an opinion about the movie from? Is it supposed to be for copyright? He would probably use that as an excuse, but to be honest with you guys, his videos are 100% undisputably fair use, and if any one of these companies wanted to try to claim him, he would probably be able to win in court with a fair use case. It would be a massive, massive lawsuit that would be a big pain in the ass, but it would be a very much like an H3 scenario. He'd probably gain a lot more from it than he would lose, and he could possibly even set a precedent for all of YouTube. But realistically, it would just, his dispute would go through because his videos are in, like, unarguably fair use. As much as they are grifting, like, drivel, the clips that he is using for critique and commentary. His content, Critical Drinkers, is undisputably fair use.
Exact same scene. Notice how Helen's been added in here when she totally should have been visible before.
But yeah, basically it's just blatantly blatantly
We
clipped
start
out.
with this slightly wider shot, revealing Blanc and Helen. Then Helen leaves, causing that sound, and Duke turns round. This point is the moment we saw earlier on, and there's a very obvious, very obtrusive sound cue, the sole purpose of which is to communicate precisely this. Look, you can enjoy the way moments like this toy with the audience perspective, complementing the film's themes, these ideas of how we see and how we falsely composite and rationalize these perceptions away from the truth, away from what's really plainly shown to us, or you can dislike it. But what you can't do is lie about how the film constructs moments like these on a mechanical level. And that's what the drinker does here to cap off his video, to build into this last point.
Stuff like this is lazy and cheap, and it completely undermines the integrity of the story, because you know that Ryan's basically just rewriting his own rules to suit whatever he wants to happen at that particular moment.
There is no way you can miss this. This cannot have been a mistake on the critical drinker's part. I could see that a child, or an inattentive, bored adult half watching Glass Onion, half napping, could have got confused here, but not someone whose job it is to analyze film. So long as you don't, I don't know, mute the scene's sound, it is that obvious. Either he didn't bother to actually rewatch the scenes he's basing this critique on, thereby not spotting the obvious, in which case, yeah, that kind of says it all, or more likely, he...
But yeah, Critical Drinker is legitimately, like, there's a lot more examples of this, and I really like Pillar of Garbage because he just kind of meticulously takes them all apart. But the thing about the fans of these guys is that there's sort of a culture that they've built up around not really watching the new movies or TV shows or whatever new piece of media comes out. Instead, they watch YouTubers complain about new pieces of media or recap it in a critical way, as a way of sort of, through osmosis, sort of getting to see the media, quote unquote, and getting to build their own contrarian opinion on the media. What's actually happening is they're being told to hate a piece of media they've never seen by a YouTuber who has a monetary interest in getting them to watch more of their videos and believe what they believe. But to the audience, they believe they're having bad movies explained to them and critiqued to them in an entertaining way so they don't have to watch them. But that's not what's happening. When the vast majority of these movies are overwhelmingly agreed upon to be very good, most of the audience is just too lazy to watch these movies because their attention span's super short from watching TikToks and playing video games with TikToks on their other monitor in the background all day, so they can't sit through a movie and pay attention long enough to actually pick up on any foreshadowing, subtle hints, or small details like this. Maybe he did forget about this part of the movie, but then again, he edited the video. He had to dishonestly edit those clips to make it so that he edited 2 different clips out, like, completely, where we see that woman, like, sneaking around, and we hear the twig snap. So he saw those scenes. He had to edit them out to make his dishonest representation of what happened in the movie. So, yeah. That's just one of the more blatant lies, because he would have actively had to edit in order to hide the truth. But he lies a lot more than that, and these videos are really good. There will, of course, be a link down below to the Pillar of Garbage video. And, of course, the code word for commenting is going to be Jack Daniels. It's 2 words. Jack Daniels. That's going to be the code word. Because Critical Drinker seems to love Jack Daniels, so that'll be the code word. If you don't leave Jack Daniels in your comment, and it's a negative one, then everybody will know, including me, that you didn't watch the video and you're just commenting to defend your daddy because you're a little mad. You're mad I criticized him, and you are so triggered you won't even hear the arguments against him because you're scared to be exposed to a reality in which the YouTuber you like is a lying piece of shit. It's a sad reality, though, but you gotta wake up and join us in it.